So the standard rules for hanging this product are universal for grasscloth application. One of the things I'd like to tell you is that with the lights off, with minimal light coming in, by using a flashlight, you can see any air pockets that you may have developed on the wall covering that you cannot see, like this. Okay, you see, well, that's not an air pocket. But I've gotten them all out, but you can see more imperfections regarding trapped air with minimal light as opposed to having maximum light. Secondly, with grasscloth, some of the grasscloth instructions tell you to double cut the product, which means put this one over this one and make your own seam. But I can tell you that the seam isn't going to look much better than what you're looking at here. One of the risks of cutting wall covering with this thick ledge here is that when you get down to here, 5 inches from this ledge, and you start to have to change the angle of your blade because this is interfering with it, when you start doing this, you can easily do this with your knife. And so I am opposed, without a significant qualitative difference in the result, to double cutting a product that has an obstacle such as this in the way. You see, when you cut wall covering all the way to the floor, and 4 inches from the floor, you have to change the angle at which you're double cutting, and you start doing this, well, you're going to have a cove base or a wood trim at the bottom. It really doesn't matter if you mess it up 3.5 inches from the floor. But here, it does matter. Something to keep in mind. Lastly, when you're putting grasscloth in corners, there's all different types of consideration in this frame of this video will be, what about the corner? How do you, viewing this corner, how do you at home like this? What do you think the corner should be? Should it be super tight? Do you want to see a black line and have it super tight? Okay. Here are things to consider when thinking about how to handle the corner. First of all, the wall covering is very thin. This is a thin grass cloth. Consequently, it fills in this 90-degree corner quite well. Here is the corner uncovered on the other side of the wall. Okay? And this is as tight as I'm going to get it to be. You'll see this, the light gets trapped in there, right? Now if I cut this, you'll eliminate this white line and you'll have a black line. Perfectly straight, or seemingly straight. It's a decision you have to make. Do you want it? It's really it's not a qualitative difference, it's simply an aesthetic issue. But what will govern the decision absolutely is whether or not this edge is plumb. If the corner isn't straight, then this edge won't be straight and the next piece will be like this. And so you can make your decision about the corner based on what I've already said, or simply by putting the level against the edge to determine whether or not it alters the plumb of the succeeding sheets. If it does, you have to cut the corner. I have a YouTube follower named Spinks. He says you have to cut every corner. I disagree with him and anybody else who says that for this reason. Why do I have to cut this corner? Some people, black lines drives them crazy. They don't want to see black lines. And if this does not lift and become something that you can press on, why do I have to cut that? Unlike this corner, which did not give me a crooked edge, we go to this corner and this edge could not be straight because this corner is not plumb. So we cut it. And so I just want to show you the difference. You see the black line in the center of your screen? Because the corner is imperceptibly squiggly, it manifests itself. In the center of your screen, you're seeing a roundedness. A little lower, you're seeing a more defined line. And then right in the center, you see the black line I'm talking about, right? Well, with Grasscloth, that's what you're looking at, okay? But over here, we have pretty much a universal corner. Now, to remedy the unstraight piece of wall covering that you just saw behind this brown paper, you can't tell that it's not straight. But the edge isn't straight. And so now I'm left with either waste this piece, throw it out and start afresh. But that gets expensive. I'm faced with the prospect of double cutting the material. In order to do that, I have to cut straight. You would agree. Now this is where a little skill comes in. A couple of things. First of all, you have to have the right tool. Okay? I have a laser level. Okay? The cheapest one I've seen on the market is about $65 from Harbor Freight in the continental USA. You need some sort of masking to protect the material from the wetness that's on this wall covering on the back. There's this glue on here. Got to protect Grasscloth. And then you need the right pressure. You're penetrating a material that is literally sewn together. If you look closely, I mean, we are penetrating this repeatedly with a sharp knife. As I go down 1, 2, 3, and 4 feet, my blade is going to get dull. And you must respond with a sufficient amount of pressure so that as you go down this line, you're sufficiently penetrating the material. If you don't, take it off and throw it in the garbage. Actually, don't throw it in the garbage. If you made a mistake on this cut, you just take this sheet, move it over, shift it again. Because you can still you can cut over here if you mess this up. But if you keep messing the piece underneath it up, if you get too close to the corner, you may start thinking about just throwing this out. So here we go. I have to double cut this now, according to that straight line. And here's the problem. This is in the way. This is going to make my blade have a problem when I come down this cut. I'm going to angle my cut at a 45 as I drag the blade from the top to the bottom. And you can just see logistically what the problem would be. Watch this. As I come down here. Look, I'm coming toward the end. What have I got to do? I can't keep the blade like this, right? This is in the way. Look what I have to do. My blade comes up, and then I have to start lifting up my blade so that it can sufficiently avoid this obstacle while penetrating. So it's quite a trick to do this right. Let's do it. Either using a single edge or a black 9mm blade, freshly cut. I'm going to push firmly into the material to start my cut. I'm pushing firmly. Remember, you're double cutting through grass cloth. If you're doing it for the first time, take it into the garage. Put it on the wall. Learn the material by testing it out. Why not? You'll do good, just you have to understand the variables. The material determines the pressure that you're going to use. The wall behind it determines the pressure as well. Is it a plaster wall? Is it a sheetrock wall? What kind of knife are you using? Okay. I'm starting to change the angle of the blade. And the wall has prevented me from doing it successfully. I go to the bottom and I push into the wall and I drag the blade upward. And then, let's see how I did. We have to remove the tape on the back of this, right? And now we have to remove this piece. Nice and gentle. You don't want to pull this piece out of square, just nice and gentle. If you get resistance, stop and trim. Now, let's join them together. We don't have this soaking wet with glue, so we can press on it nice and gently. As I get it into place, I'm pressing more firmly. And to get a true sense of my seam, I'll remove the laser so that you can see how good we did. Oh, I'm blocking the light. How did we do? We're not done yet. We'll move the laser out of our way. Now, we can do better than that, can't we? Watch this. Using your full body pressure and the palm of your hand. I'm not using my fingers. I'm using the palm of my hand. Aha! And we're just going to push it over, okay? How's that? And you're only moving it over a hair. All right? There you have it. You know that grass cloth is a random match. You're not expecting these dark colors to meet up. It doesn't do that. A lot of people don't realize that when they watch wallpaper videos. But there you have it, folks. This is a small toilet room inside of a larger bathroom. The larger bathroom also used this same exact wall covering, and this was an add-on from the larger bathroom. I just thought I would show you some tips and tricks while I did this very small bathroom. It was quite difficult to work in since the toilet bowl takes up 1/3 of the space on the floor. Not an easy place to work, especially double cutting grass cloth. But just take a look. If you want grass cloth, these are the seams that you're going to see. It's a natural product. And your customers, you should show the video to your customers so that they're aware of the fact. Many of them don't realize that this is the case. When they initially choose grass cloth, they're looking at it in one sheet strips, which are not installed next to their counterpart where they're going to see the seams. So it's sort of a little deception when considering grass cloth, when the person doesn't look at it next to another piece of grass cloth. So please make sure that they know the aspects of grass cloth installation before you install it, because you may be surprised. They might tell you, hey, I didn't know I was going to see the seams. Have you ever tried to hang wallpaper against a profile so ornate, so detailed? Look at all of the points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all within about 6 inches. How do you do it? Have you ever tried to hang grass cloth, which is a lot thicker than conventional wall coverings? Wouldn't you agree? Let me show you the way I go about doing this. It becomes, how do we get this profile onto our wallpaper? There are a couple of ways to do it, but if you try it the conventional way, you'll wind up scratching up the crown molding with grass cloth. I would do it the conventional way if I were dealing with wallpaper. This is grass cloth. This is very difficult to achieve. And so what I did was I got out my compass. And although the point has fallen off on the right, I simply traced the design onto here. Now this is not easy because you can't make this go like this as you're going down. It has to be kept level at all times. In other words, these 2 points at the top must be level all the time. If they should change position and go on an angle like this, your profile will be off. Let's transfer this now onto our wallpaper. Now I take my template and I put it over the piece that I want to install, okay? I have this outdoors, clamped down so the wind doesn't take it away. And the idea is going to be to cut this profile, cut right through it, and transfer this profile onto my sheet. Now, you can always cut a little more, but you can never add. So, as we go along here, we want to favor cutting less than cutting more. Because when we get it up against the crown, we can always trim it 1/8 of an inch. But we can't add 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch missing is a failed attempt to go around that profile. Let's do this right. This is an X-Acto knife, an artist knife. And what I'm going to do is cut through this profile with this very sharp blade. Okay? So, let's see how I do. Okay, so I favored leaving 1/8 of an inch so that I could trim it when I get there. Let's see how I did. So you can see the crown and its profile right there. After making sure that the left edge is straight, I cannot commit to the final cut up there unless this is straight. So you're best off getting a laser level just to make sure that that's straight. Imagine if that were perfect and this were off. These horizontal lines would be visibly not level. So now what I'm going to do with my knife is to now push this in. We're almost perfect here. And we don't want to scratch this, obviously. And we just want to push this in nice and easy after we made our beautiful cut and get this looking perfect. As I push my wall covering for the final layout, I take a credit card-like object from my wallet and I push the edges of the wallpaper into position. And what I'm trying to do is just see if there's any space between this and the wall covering. You know, look, there is here. And so what I can do is hide the, see, Grasscloth has these frayed edges, you know? And when you cut it, you're cutting away at this fabric. And so you don't want that to make your cut look sloppy. You want it perfect. Look at that beautiful cut. That's what you want. And so this helps me just get any frayed edges right behind that molding. How about that? You like that? I think it's absolutely beautiful. Now, how are we going to get that? Here's what I suggest we do. Like a surgeon, you find that corner and you start pushing that wall covering into that corner, getting the wall covering familiar with where you want it to be. After you're done, and you want to make creases, well, just one crease, all the way up this. And then what I'm gonna do is simply stab it repeatedly right in the corner to make it perforated for the purposes of removing the excess. If you go slow, your knife will find the corner. If you go fast, you'll blow it. How about that? You see, this is the beauty of hanging wallpaper. You know? You see, my blade is finding that space between the wood. It's not scratching the wood at all, because I can feel it. It's going behind that piece of wood. And as you can see the knife is behind there? And we'll have a nice trim piece. So that in the end, we just want to pull that away and wipe it down. And that, my friends, is how you trim Grasscloth up against an intricate crown molding piece. Nice and easy, a lot of patience. If you're not the patient type, have someone else do it. This will drive you crazy. Let's move on with the rest of the installation. Now that we've done a beautiful job up there, what about this? How would you cut it? Well, if you're a wallpaper installer, you have a conventional smoother. That's about 1/8 of an inch. What would happen if I cut my wall covering over here up against this smoother? Isn't my very expensive cabinetry right behind there? You see the difference? If I cut it up against here and make it a 45 with this wall and with the cabinet, that's a 45. Guess what I'll be cutting up against? The very space, if there even be any, between the cabinetry and the wall. You want to get yourself a thin spatula before you make this decision, because you might have a perfect installation up there and blow it down here. So that when you're pulling off the trim piece, after having cut it, you have not violated the wood. You can always move the paper over a hair, but not more than a hair. But you can never cover chopped up wood with the wall covering. When I wipe down the wall up against Grasscloth, I always keep in mind that the Grasscloth is not supposed to be getting wet. And so I just create a fence with a smoother. Just drag it along. This way you don't get any excessive moisture up against your grass. You don't want that. If you take these little extra steps, you get a real professional installation. Let's see how we did with that. Nice and clean cut. How do you get wallpaper into that tough little spot? That is not even 1 inch. I'm talking about that space right there. Let me show you how I'm gonna do it. Real carefully. Sometimes wallpaper hanging is really something you invent as you go along. Now, we're in an old home, and so things are not as nearly straight as the newer homes. So this gap here is more narrow. See, when you're pushing it from this side in, from here in, it wraps around that corner. But if you were to try to do this, by filling in that space, you'd be there a long time. So we got it in there pretty nicely. Okay. And it's right up against this part of the wall. I'll open the closet door so the camera can get a full view of it. See that? And so that's how you do it. So now we have this piece over the door that we want to join. So we went ahead and installed that panel, but now, rather than waste all of the space to the left of the white vertical molding, we're going to do a splice because it works out best. So let's get this piece up. We have our borders protected here. I have a laser line on my seam, and I'm simply going to cut this sheet right within these borders of tape and laser. See that? And we want to get it level with the point of that, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Now we'll cut our vertical piece. What I'm doing in this frame right here is perfecting the cut. You see, it's already cut as I lifted it up. But now I'm going to the wood trim, making sure with my spatula that I'm cutting it level, and I'm cutting now from the left toward the rest of the cut. Okay. Pull away our excess. Let's get the tape out of the way. And let's see how it came out. And so the counterpart is now done. You'll remember that we did this one by using the compass and transferring the profile onto a scrap piece of wall covering. This is the other side of the cabinetry. This is the symmetrical counterpart on the other side of the bathroom sinks. And so the profile, as you see, came out just as fine. It's actually one of the hardest things I've had to do in wallpaper installation. Now, you see that white up against where I'm pointing it out? That is the painter who failed to get the paint all the way up next to the corner. That is not glue, it's not caulking, it's simply primer, and the painter came in afterwards and touched that up. Here's I want to show you a little method of tucking the grass cloth against the edge. So I have what's like a credit card here. It's not a credit card, but it's like one. It's actually thin. See that? You see what I got there? It's thinner than a credit card. It goes behind that wood. Now, isn't that great? You don't want all of these threads, you know? And if you can push them behind the cabinet, great, you know? And if you can't, here's what you do. You just go up against the cabinet and you push them against the wall covering. And then the moisture from the glue will make that stick to the wall covering. I'm going to tell you a little trick with grass cloth. You know what you can use on this? Hairspray on a Q-tip. If there's too much fraying going on, take a little hairspray, put it on a Q-tip, and just pat down on the grass cloth, and guess what? You'll have yourself a nice edge. You know, if you had big strings that you cut off, different grass cloth will give you different results. This is nothing. But sometimes if you just take a little hairspray, put that down, it acts like hairspray. Okay? And that is our nice, beautiful line. Every now and again with grass cloth, you may get that, and that, and that. What do? Well, I take a syringe that's designed to give pigs antibiotics, and I fill it with glue and water, and I penetrate the issue on the side, fill it up with glue, and then smooth it out.